All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to learn something new today. We're going to learn about point-slope form of a linear equation. So basically what you need to understand is the point-slope form. There's an equation for it that we're going to use. That equation is the following. It is y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. All right. What you need to understand is that m is your slope, y1 and x1 are coordinate points. Okay, we're going to use those coordinate points and that slope, and we're going to write an equation for that linear line. So let's go ahead and look at an example. We're going to look at an example of the following. This has a coordinate point of 2, 3, and the slope of this is equal to 4. So I have negative 2, 3 is the coordinate point, and my slope is equal to 4. So we're going to take this information and we're going to substitute it into this point-slope form to derive the equation for y equals mx plus b that we learned in the last chapter, or last lesson. So let's go ahead and substitute in here. Again, I have to look and I notice that negative 2 is my x-coordinate, so this is going to be my x1. 3 is going to be my y1. So now that I've identified my x1 and my y1, my slope is 4. I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in here. I do not have a value for y. I do, however, have a value for y1, which is 3. So I'm going to subtract 3. I'm going to set that equal to m, which is the slope of 4. I'm going to rewrite, I'm in parentheses, I have x minus x1, which is negative 2. All right. Since this is subtracted in negative, I can treat that, I'm going to rewrite that without the subtracted in negative. I'm going to rewrite that as y minus 3 equals 4, parentheses, x plus 2. Because subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So I'm going to rewrite that as adding the positive. From here, I need to go ahead and solve my equation. Like I learned in the previous unit, first thing I need to do is get rid of parentheses. I notice here that I have to use the distributive property. So I'm going to distribute the 4 into the x and the 4 into the 2. So when I do that, I'm going to have y minus 3, 4 times x is 4x, plus 4 times 2, which is 8. So it's a plus 8, so I'm going to have that there. Reminder, my goal is I want to try to get it in this format, y equals mx plus b. I have the y, so I need to try to get the y by itself. Right now, there's a minus 3 there, so I need to get rid of the minus 3 by adding 3. Because I want to keep it balanced, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. As a result, the y minus 3 and plus 3 cancel out. That leaves me with just y equals, I'm doing plus 3 to the 8 because these are, the 3 and the 4x are not like terms, so I just have 4x, plus 8 plus 3 is 11. So the equation of my line is y equals 4x plus 11. So by writing this, I have now learned what the y-intercept is for this line. The y-intercept is equal to 11, because I know that from the equation of my line. So let's go ahead and look at another example here. This one's going to be a little more difficult than I'm looking at here. I have negative 1, 2, and I'm going to have a slope that is negative 1/2. So again, I'm going to use the point slope form that I learned up here, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1, and I'm going to use that and substitute these in here. So I'm going to write that down here, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So I'm going to go ahead and label this. This is my x-coordinate. This is my y-coordinate. This would be my 1s. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute in here. So for y1, I'm going to put a negative 1. Or sorry, not a negative 1, a 2. A 2. So for y1, I need to put a 2, not a negative 1. So I'm going to put a 2 in there, but I'm still subtracting 2. Equals, m is going to be negative 1/2 now because that's my slope. For x, I'm going to leave x there, and now I'm going to substitute for the negative, for x to the first, minus or a negative 1 here. So again, you notice here I have a minus and negative, so I'm going to rewrite that so that it's adding a positive. So rewriting my equation so that I'm taking out that minus and the negative. My next step is to do the distributive property. So I'm going to do the distributive property of the negative 1/2 x and then the negative 1/2 into 1. So that leaves me with y minus 2. Negative 1/2 times x gives me negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 plus 1 would actually give me a minus 1/2. Alright. Next step, I'm going to go ahead and I need to get y by itself, so I get rid of the minus 2 by adding 2. And to keep it balanced, I have to add 2 to the other side. I'm going to add 2 to the minus 1/2. This side's going to cancel out, leave me with y. I have the minus 1/2 x already, so that's going to be my slope. A negative 1/2 and a positive 2 will get you a positive 1 1/2 or a positive 3 over 2. So the slope of my line is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3 1/2, which this tells me my y-intercept is equal to 3 1/2. Alright, now that I've shown you a couple examples, let's have you try one on your own. The one you're going to try on your own is 6, 2 is the coordinate point, and a slope is 2/3. So a coordinate point is 6, 2, and a slope of 2/3. Go ahead and hit pause on the video now, and until you get finished, then unpause and check to see how you did. Alright, let's go ahead and check to see how you did. Again, you should be using the formula y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. You should have labeled 6 x1, 2 would be y1. Substituted those in there, so you have y minus 2 equals 2/3 is going to go in for m, x minus 6 for x1. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. I get y minus 2 equals 2/3 x minus 2/3 of 6. So 2/3 of 6 would be 4. The easy way to do that is I did 2/3 times 6 over 1. I simplify. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. Notice how, again, I still have the subtraction of 4 there. I need to get rid of the minus 2 from the y, so I simply add 2 to both sides to keep it balanced. This will leave me with y after that crosses out, cancels out. Gives me 2/3 x. I add 2 to negative 4 or minus 4, and I get a minus 2. So the equation of my line is y equals 2/3 x minus 2.